Alright, welcome back. Youth League matches. Let's get requesting. We are on our quest to go 8 wins out of 8. And I think we can almost, 8 for 8, sure. Let's not start. I think, that's what we're going for. And not only to win them all, but I think it's also, we're sort of trying to, win them all, but also win them all in a very, controlled way, let's say. Win them all, and ideally also win them all in a fashion where it kind of never really looked like we realistically weren't going to win any of them as well, just to sort of firmly control every single match. I'm going to try and do that part. That's going to be harder than winning them all is one thing, but to dominate them all to that degree is obviously is harder, but we're going to try. So, here we go. I think another thing that makes this tactic particularly good is that by not playing the AML and MR, or even ML and MR, by basically playing, we do have wing backs, so they are coming up the flank, they are getting forwards a bit, but effectively their two fullbacks are kind of not doing a lot, basically. Not when they're attacking, obviously, but also not defensively either. They're just, because we're typically just hitting it through the middle, so they're typically, one of these is a wing back, so he's coming up, so he is a bit involved, but we're kind of they're kind of just not doing much, basically, because there's not, effectively we've got two strikers, so they're naturally being marked by the two centre halves and whatnot, right? So it's they obviously are, he's received the pass, they are doing stuff, I'm just saying they're not, they're doing some things, they're just not doing a lot. Basically they're being deployed suboptimally, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and that's just a side bonus to this tactic, is that because we don't play any wide attackers, and because we're playing these two strikers that are naturally just being marked by these two centre halves, that the fullbacks kind of just are just extra dudes, but they're extra dudes out wide where the threat basically doesn't exist. What they really need is extra dudes in the middle, right? Basically against us, for example, it would be way better if they had 3 centre halves and a DMC instead of a flat back 4. So this is kind of potentially a tip if you're playing against a team like this, that if you reconfigure your back 4 to be like that, so that would obviously also require probably that you have players that can play more than one position, so you can easily just make that change without making any subs. That's what you ideally want. You can just start the match or whatever. They're that. Okay, stop. Change my back 4 to that configuration, and it's going to be much stronger, basically. Because instead, you would basically have two guys being marked, but then you'd also be marking out AMC naturally with your DMC, and then you'd also have a free central defender in case any tackles were missed or whatever, 3-ball, whatever, blah blah blah. You basically just have an extra defender. So it would be an extra defender that's where you want them to be, i.e. in the middle, instead of 2 extra defenders where you don't want them to be, which is out wide where no threat exists. yeah. And again, I think this game is just completely over. Another just total, just completely pinned back, completely dominated, basically. I wonder if we'll get through a match without them even having a shot. Super hard for that. And again, like, that's the thing. It isn't really just... I mean, that's just a Mickey Mouse type of thing to care about. It's just an interest point or whatever. Like, oh, wow, they didn't even have a shot sort of thing. It doesn't really matter. What kind of really, like, for example, like, they could have got into, like, a great couple of really dangerous situations that easily could have been a goal. The ball just fell a little bit differently, but they didn't have a shot. That's something way more to be concerned about. Whereas, like, last match, for example, they did have a hot shot from long range that went well wide that was never going to score, no matter how accurate it was anyway. And, you know, that's something you just don't care about at all. Like, you're totally happy for them to take that shot. So it is kind of like a... but yeah, it's an interesting mini objective, I guess you could say. Let's see if we can get through a match without them having a shot. It's just like an achievement or something, or a challenge or whatever, or a goal, whatever you want to say. It doesn't really mean anything or matter, but directly, but indirectly, it's a little subtask, I guess you could say, just an interest point. I guess in all seriousness, if that was the objective, is there something tactically we could do to try to make that more the case? If we don't really care about conceding, but what we do care about is them having a shot at all, is there something we could do to try to reduce that happening? I'm honestly not sure. I mean, because we're already pretty damn close to them never having a shot at all as it is. I'll just resume, think about that. It's pretty close to, as far as I can tell, like, because that's effectively the plan, right? Like, one of the key elements of the plan is to completely deny them chances. It kind of feels like this type of stuff like that, like, you know, but basically for them to get a chance is off the back of a mistake, which happened back here. We gave up the ball back here, so yeah. And again, it was like a real long shot. It's exactly the type of chance you're happy to give up. Oh, sorry, that one would have been. I'm thinking of last game. Sorry, yeah. So it wasn't a good. You know, that was off the back of a mistake. It was a solid chance. That was a decent chance, by the way. That could score. In another world, right now, because that off the back of the mistake and the cross and the shot or whatever, like that could have scored. That other shot could have scored. In a world where we're exceptionally unlucky, like, it could be 3-2 right now. And then we would be very frustrated at missing that chance if that was the case. But yeah, so I think oh, there we go. Score another goal. 2 double braces for brace for each of our strikers. It's very it's very difficult, to be honest, because this is working extremely, like, everything kind of just working perfectly, exactly as we planned, exactly as we set up, exactly as we wanted. Everything's kind of going to plan, where we are kind of just completely dominating the matches. It kind of doesn't matter how unlucky we are. We're going to win anyway. Or I guess you could say, that's not true. We can survive a certain amount of bad luck and still win, and that threshold is very high. Obviously, if we're unlucky enough, we would still not win. But is quite a high threshold. Like, I feel like we could play quite a lot of matches here. Like, if you're talking about what would the win percentage be playing against this type of opposition with how we're set up, it would be high. I think it'd be like 95. Like, we'll be winning like 19 out of 20, something like that. And again, like, that type of chance, you're happy to give it up, but at the end of the day, like, that could still score, so they could have 3 goals right now. And even then, we would still be winning with 2 clear goals. So it's just like really shows how much we're dominating this match. But yeah, I think to some degree the more interesting tactical value you can point out is like the types of things that the other team could be doing to I don't know if stop us is the word here, but certainly make it way harder so that it's not like this easy. Because I think part of the issue here at the end of the day is that you know, we are optimizing our tactics to get the most out of our players, but you know, at the end of the day, like, we still have players that are way better than theirs. Some individual players that are like way better. So, and at the end of the day, that just matters a lot. But you know, the fact that we're also set up to maximize that advantage. At the end of the day, I think there's just things that the other team could do here to, you know, they probably would lose anyway, but maybe 3-1, 2-0, and this is key, right? And all of a sudden, that win percentage that I'm talking about is reduced from 95% maybe down to 90 or 85%. We probably win, but if we played a bunch of matches, there are matches where we wouldn't, if they were set up much better against us. Is this guy ever going to play? He's 19. Probably not, but whatever. Let's just... At this point, there's no particular reason why we can't just be giving people development points. Yes, maybe maybe we could have scored one more goal without these changes, but I mean, it doesn't really... I mean, it matters a bit, I guess. Mostly for the match ratings and stuff, but yeah, I'm not going to stress too much about making some subs to get some development points when you're 5-0 up, to be honest. And that could have been a goal, right? So basically, like, in a world where we are exceptionally unlucky, we could have conceded 4 goals here. So but yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make before. Just like the bad luck threshold that we can have and still win with how we're set up, it's like really high. So high that it's like, it's almost crazy to ever take any unnecessary risks, because with anything. So it's quite interesting, right? Because they actually have more possession than us as well. Just as an interesting little point. Alright, I'm just going to dive straight into the next one. Honestly, I like how the team's set up. I played a bunch of youth matches. I'm really confident. Even then, that first match, yes, it was 2-1, but we did have the 2-0 lead. They scored near the end. We very, you know, it was at the end of the day, though, like, obviously, that is an example of that. You know, I'm saying it's 19 out of 20 or whatever, but in that 19 out of 20 that we would win, there would be 1 or 2 matches, or 3 or 4, maybe, I don't know how many, but at least 1 for sure, in that 19 out of those 20 matches, we would not win 1, but there would also be another 1 or 2 that are like this one. So we've had one of those. We could potentially have another one of those, and we would have one where we don't win, sort of thing. But most of them are just going to be the bulk of the 20. I don't know how many, 15 or whatever, are just going to be like these last couple of matches where it was just kind of like, it was just over very quickly, basically, and it's just a case of like, yeah, the match is won after 20 minutes, but what's the final score going to be, sort of thing. going to be quite an interesting change for next season, to be honest, because the youth teams we play against will be harder, and we will just lose these weapons effectively that we are easily winning these matches with. So it's going to be interesting going from being this easy to being like significantly more difficult next season. But we look forward to it. I've already had a shot. So, of all the matches so far, this is the one that I'm thinking that might score, basically. That this is the one where things are not... We're not getting that sort of clean start, basically. So I'm kind of like paying close attention, ready to make some tactical change as and when I see something that makes sense to try. Okay, and now we've scored, so straight away that changes things, because now... Before, if we weren't looking like scoring, and now we're maybe looking like scoring, I mean, it wasn't a lot to go on, because it was still in the early stages of the match, but a little bit to go on. It could have made sense to change things up a bit, because we don't want too much time to elapse without scoring, so we need to be on the ball and try and make the changes that make sense early. But now that we've scored, it's like there's a risk involved in changing things, and it sort of doesn't make sense necessarily. Like, you've got to be way more convinced about what you're doing actually makes sense, because it's, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's just risk. There's risk involved, and certain game states that make sense to take those risks if you want to win, and other games it doesn't. And it's just the whole entire risk situation is just shifted massively because we scored that goal. Let me just think. I'm going to change something because I'm just thinking, and I have thought of something that does make sense to change. I think changing these guys to fullbacks could make sense. I'll just try that out. So, and the reason for that is just because their team has created a few dangerous chances. Like we've created a little bit more, but they have created a bit. We do have enough reason here to be sort of a bit scared of them, and to think that they could score 1 or 2 goals, or even more possibly, based on what we've seen. And based on what we've seen, we might do the same. You know, maybe a bit more, but based on what we've seen, even with that goal, I think that, you know, they did pose a threat. So, and I think also the other key part is that we weren't pinning them back that much, like as much, quite a bit, but not as much. The other ones were like 65%. So it is like quite a bit, but not as much. So I think it's that combined with the threat, their goal scoring threat, combined with I didn't see a lot of our fullbacks really contributing that much on the attacking play. Like, the chances we were getting were just straight through the middle, and just the ball sort of like this, basically. This was the kind of chances we were getting. So I feel like on the whole, like, I guess setting them to fullback wasn't a significant reduction to our goal scoring threat, arguably not even a reduction at all. And we've, since scored, so I feel like that wasn't a completely wrong analysis. and that there was enough reason to believe that by having a solid backline, that's going to make us more defensively stable, as opposed to trying to what our original plan A was, which was to pin them back and to just always be attacking, because that wasn't happening. They were getting attacks, and I feel like, at least based on what we've seen so far, the changes kind of worked. Right back just made a mistake, but he has got a knock. I kind of feel like it's worked. Like, they haven't really created any significant chance since we did it, and we still have been creating our own chances, and we still have scored. So we have an interesting thing here. Like, do we run with this guy on his lower condition? I will for now, but you certainly wouldn't want him below 70, that's for sure, on the next threshold down, so we need to... So I feel like they're just like, before they could hit us, like they were sort of counter-attacking us and creating some chances off the back of the fact that we had everybody forwards and that they just had a numbers advantage because we only had the two DCs and the DMC back. But I think now that we've got, rather than just 3 players back, they have to go into 5 players. They're just struggling to create anything. Oh, that's a great chance. And a goal. Like I said, I still feel like yeah. So I feel like, for example, the game was in the balance a bit. At the start, we scored. It kind of definitely massively increased our percentage chances of winning at that point. But it still felt a little bit in the balance. But I really do feel like since we changed those fullbacks, those DL and DR to be fullback role instead of wingback, I really feel like they just haven't looked like scoring pretty much since we did that. And we've still been having our chances. Basically, guess is what I'm saying is, it kind of feels like we've won the match very convincingly, despite a bit of a shaky start. We haven't had any matches where we've sort of been struggling to score to be able to have to make any changes to try to fix that one up yet. I don't know if that's going to happen, to be honest, but it might. We'll see. At least we did have to... So yeah, this change to make us defensively more stable, to change the wingbacks to fullbacks, with the nature of how the tactic works, it's kind of an obvious low risk, obvious high defensive upside change that we can make that doesn't fundamentally change the build up and attacking nature of the tactic. It just fundamentally changes the defensive nature of the tactic, i.e. we're not necessarily trying to just pin them back anymore. We are giving them some space and we're just looking to let them come into us and win the ball. So it's basically the changing the wingbacks to fullbacks is actually more about changing how we defend as opposed to how we attack. Now we've got this guy. I think if we put him here, we put him in the middle. But now we need a right midfielder, so I think we're going to have to also change this. It's a bit of a shonky change, to be honest. I'll pay close attention now to what this means for things. I think we need to make it though, because I do feel like the way, well, if they're going to score 3 goals, it's going to be off of the back of multiple mistakes. So, and I do feel like leaving that DR out there when he had that would have been really low condition is potentially he could have just made all 3 of them. So. That's a shame. I feel like we're a little bit exposed down the right there. I mean, I'll just make the change for the purposes of being optimal, but obviously we just won this game regardless. I think the change here is to just move him to there and just push them a little bit wider. Possibly bringing this guy across here, but whatever, I'm not going to do that. I think that'll be enough to just close it off. And we got a last sub to make. It was this guy that we want to get the mostly to make sure he gets on every match, so we'll get him on. I guess the other thing we should be thinking of a little bit is that it is possible that this horrible backup keeper will end up starting as our youth keeper next season. I'm sure if that happens, we'll absolutely be prioritising trying to get one, but it may take a bit of time. So with that in mind, we probably should just be bringing the keeper on sometimes to get him some points as well, especially in matches like this where, you know, it's kind of over, it doesn't really matter. And we've had well, all of the matches have been like that except the first one. So the last 3 matches have been like that. So he could have come on in the last 3 matches and it just really wouldn't have mattered, even if he had have conceded off of every shot that they took that was on target. So yeah, and if we can just get him a few appearances, he'll get some points and just help his training options a bit. So that one I think was a bit different. We did make that change in the first half. We'll just check the stats just out of curiosity, how that impacts stuff. So yeah, it was a very different game in nature. Like you can see, like statistically, for example, like our defenders didn't attempt anywhere near as many tackles compared to the other games. They did probably get a similar amount of interceptions. They got loads of interceptions still, but yeah, it was the case basically that the other team was able to effectively build up their attacks still and get some shots, and it wasn't like we were hitting it forwards, having a chance, and we were doing that, but when we gave up the ball and they were coming back at us, they were able to do some build-up play. More so this game than other games. Now, it didn't necessarily result in more shots, but just more, build-up play. It was a different game. It played out a bit different, and obviously we made that change, which then made it even play out a bit more different. And again, the territory 58 versus 42. I think that's okay. So this one was similar, so it's not too dissimilar anyway. The territory. This one was way different. Okay, so yeah, maybe a little bit on the low side, but not the lowest. Still very high though. By the way, very very high. Yeah. So, well, we got 4 more to go. Hopefully something interesting happens that makes it difficult for us to be able to win, and we can try to do some changes. So we'll catch you for those. Cheers.